Okay, let's do this thing. Welcome, weary travellers and friends, to the third episode of Spotlight Chewing, where we talk about the weird, wild and wonderful projects that you may not have heard about but probably should. And tonight we will be discussing art, music, biscuits. I don't know why I always say biscuits. I feel like we need to do one episode where we talk about biscuits just so I'll stop talking about them. But as ever, I am joined by my illustrious co-host, Steve. Steve, what's the most exciting thing that's happened to you this week?
Oh, man. I'm going to be really boring. The most exciting thing was getting my bike tuned up and it doesn't squeak anymore. That's been the most exciting thing for me this week. Yeah, I had a weird squeak in my bike, and when I pedaled, it would make these really obnoxious noises, and so I got it all tuned up, and it's nice and clean and doesn't make a bunch of obnoxious sounds anymore, so that's kind of nice.
I mean, that's pretty exciting, and it must be more relaxing as well.
Yeah, I can turn the audiobook volume down, and I can not worry about people staring anymore.
So, Steve obviously has had a bike-centric week this week. However, we are also joined once again by one of our wonderful friends, fresh from the forums. It is the incredibly talented writer and part-time polar bear, Thomas J. Devens. Thomas, what is the most exciting thing that's happened to you this week?
My week's also been pretty boring, but I got to take extra time off of work, which doesn't happen too often, so that was nice.
That's pretty cool. Time off work is good. I am currently on my holidays as well, so I'm with you on that. Cool.
So, Holly, what was the most exciting thing for you this week?
Oh, okay. So, this week has been utter chaos in the Tinsley household. So, we've had so many deliveries this week from Amazon. I actually think that the Amazon delivery guy is just going to set up a base camp outside our front door. So we've had all sorts of banners, we've had goodie bag stuff through everything that's for the Spotlight, Fantasy and Sci-Fi Spotlight event that's coming up in September. That's all started to come through now. My house just looks like some sort of depot. And we also, I believe it was last week, launched our YouTube channel, which is very exciting, with our first interview going up. That's with, oh my God, why can't I remember who our first interview is with? This looks really bad. I promise, guys, I do know what's going on with this event. So it was with Emily Inkpen, who is our special guest, talking about Dex Legacy. So that's been really fun to work on. And other than that, the most exciting thing that's happened this week is I did see a baby marmoset today. That was pretty cool. So for people who don't know, baby marmoset is like a tiny little monkey. So yeah, all good.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know. Don't think I've heard of that one. Is that a thing?
It's definitely, they're really cool. They look like characters out of a fantasy book. They're probably about 2-3 inches tall, and then they've got like huge tufty beards that come out the side of their face, and then they just like crawl along trees and jump around, and just they're cool, weird little creatures. And I feel like we've got wildly off track already. How does this happen?
It always happens, though, right?
Steer us back into port. Come on. So, Thomas, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Can you tell us a little bit, for those who don't know, about yourself, your writing, and your projects?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I am Thomas J. Devens. I write, I guess, gritty epic fantasy, I always call it. It's maybe grimdark, but I don't know. I don't know what that is. And, but yeah, so I have 2 ongoing series out of The Fall of Emros and Vermin of the Old Empire. The latter of which is kind of just irreverent, crass, and dirty fantasy.
The best sort.
And that's how I like to describe it.
Very nice. Yeah. I think it's safe to say we're all fans of kind of gritty, dirty fantasy, like, you know, getting into the nitty-gritty and not the polished washboard abs, long flowing hair. You know, that's, yeah, so
Yeah, we want a bit of grit and a bit of dirt. So
yeah.
For me, the fun thing was that I had seen your name around, and I kind of was aware that you wrote things, and I didn't really know about your style of writing or what you did until you actually took part in a contest via the forums that we held over the period of a year, which was organised fantastically well by the wonderful AJ Retker. And I was very fortunate to be a judge and got to read everybody's stories in that. But how was that experience for you? What did you find from it?
That was a great experience, actually, because I had like 2 years I was kind of in between living situations that was complicated. So I kind of stopped writing almost entirely for 2 years, except for the Writer's Battleground. And that kind of like was my only creative outlet for that year, pretty much. And it was just a great experience. It was good to have something that I was still putting out there to keep me from just completely stagnating. And then that is actually where the new series, Vermin of the Old Empire, started. Like some of the short stories I used for that is what began the world of the new series that's kind of just like a bunch of standalone shorter fiction pieces.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm always fascinated as well by how, some authors will fall very much into, they love writing short stories, like novella-like stuff. Others will write huge, great big, the chunky books that go on for thousands and thousands of pages. And then some people, like yourself, can do a bit of both. But is there, do you have a preference? Do you prefer to write a lot of short stuff, or do you like something to get your teeth into?
I like doing a mix of it, because when I started out, I wanted to concentrate on shorter fiction. But then I just ended up with 100,000 words for the first novel. And I was like, okay, well, that didn't work out. So now it's nice to have the two different series so I can go back and forth, because I appreciate the big chunky books, but it's nice to have a break from that once in a while. And you got this book you're trying to read that's 900 pages, but you can take a break and read 100 pages of something else for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that whole experience of doing that competition, it was great for me because it really introduced me to a lot of people and to a lot of the different talents that there are within the forums itself. And what's great to see is people taking what they learnt from that and then applying it. And, you've got people who were involved that are now working on larger scale projects and first books. So, those little ripples of doing things like that, they really do grow into something. Do you ever think about maybe doing something like that again yourself? Would you ever think about hosting a contest or?
I would like to do it again, although I have found myself having an issue of biting off more than I can chew. So maybe I shouldn't do it again. And also would possibly be interested in switching over to the helping out on the judging side, maybe. Because I think it would be a great thing to keep going, whether I participate in it again or not, just for other people, because it is a lot of fun and a good experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm not trying to put pressure on anybody, but I thought it was great and I would love for it to happen again. I don't want to do it myself because it's a lot of work and I don't want to take that on. Yeah. If anyone else does, I'm all up for it.
Yeah, I think, and that's a testament to AJ and to you, Holly, both, because it's scary to put yourself out there and to submit to judges and kind of be involved in that kind of thing, when a lot of the people who were involved were just wanting to dip their toes into it. So it was a great thing to see. And if it ever, I hope it does happen again, because I'd like to try it next time. But I would imagine that you learn, I don't know if you learn more being a judge or if you learn more submitting. I think because when you're a judge, you read everything, right? So, and then you have to provide feedback, so you constantly have that frame of mind of providing feedback for someone. So I'm sure that you, I'm assuming that you picked up at least something through that, just to kind of, like little things, or you picked up on habits that certain writers have, or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's interesting about doing something like that from the judging side is that, if anything, as a writer, when you do things like that, it's really helping you narrow your focus. So you're really defining, your style and your voice, your tone, and the kind of direction that you want to take with each project. As a judge, it's really opening you up to all these different styles. So there's stuff that I read throughout the process of the competition that I wouldn't have otherwise picked up or looked at. And people were coming out with just the most unique, brilliant, bizarre, crazy ideas. And it was just an absolute joy to see people, especially, there would be months where people would put in their entries and they'd say, do you know what? I know this isn't my best work. I know I've made mistakes in this, but I want to give something different a try. I want to push outside of my comfort zone. And that was really inspiring to see people taking those risks and taking those chances. So, yeah, doing that as a judge, really enjoyable. And obviously, because it was short stories as well, I love a short story. I have zero attention span. So 2,000 words, perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. You both mentioned biting off more than you can chew, and of course, I'm guilty of that too. But it's so hard when there's so many fun things that you want to do. It's tough to. It's hard to say no to some things that, or that you'll enjoy, but you just, that you can't give it enough attention to really, devote yourself to it.
It is. And I think as well, everybody probably feels the same way who does these kind of things, is that there is a great joy in creativity and, writing, art, singing, whatever it is that you do that's creative, and people want to share that. So there is something incredibly exciting and, incredibly rewarding about doing, stuff like this, where we're talking about other artists and other creatives doing the competitions, because it's a big group of people who all love the same thing, essentially, just sharing the love of something. I know, my career as a motivational speaker is about to begin any day now. But
no, it's it's a lot. So no, I do hope it happens again, though. I know some others want it, or hoping that it does. But it's one of those things that it has to kind of line up for everyone at the right time.
Yeah.
So it's tough to, but when it does happen, it's pretty special.
Yeah. No, absolutely agree with that. However, I do have a list of things that I've bought today for us to talk about, and I am eager to get on to the first topic, which I don't think we've actually covered this in the previous two. And Thomas, I'm really interested to get your take on this. I would like to talk a little bit about artwork today, because this is something that I've had a lot of dealings with over the past year or so. Doing, I mean, I can't draw for anything. Stick figures perplex me. But looking and sourcing for artists for various book projects, events, things like that. And it is an exciting time, and it is also an incredibly stressful time trying to find the right people to work with. So I want to start out by shouting out a few artists that I've worked with that I think are well worth checking out if people are on the lookout for someone for a book cover, whatever it may be. First of those is Dawn Larder. So Dawn Larder is an amazing artist that I have worked with on multiple projects at this point. So she was the artist who did the cover for The Hallows for me. She also did the cover for the Anatomy of Fear Kickstarter project, and she did all of our illustrations for our the illustrations that were inside the book that were also our stickers and our posters. She's absolutely fabulous. So she specialises in hand-drawn illustrations. So it's not so much realism, which I know a lot of people like. It is the more traditional 2D painted sketches, line art. She does a vast variety of different styles, and they're all excellent. So highly recommend checking her out if you are on the lookout for someone. The second person that I want to highlight today is an artist who I haven't yet worked with, but I have been trying to find a way to sync up projects with them for about 3 years now. We've been talking back and forth on emails and social media, and this is a guy called Matthew Warne, and his artwork is incredible. He does beautiful work with fantasy characters and scenes. So he does a lot of work based on D&D and Dungeons. So obviously it's going to appeal to me. But the things that he does with visual effects in his art are absolutely mind-blowing. So he uses incredible light and like, I can't think of a better way to describe it, but he makes pictures look like they glow. I mean, it's beyond me how this is done. But yeah, Matthew Warne, he is on ArtStation. I know that on his social media he does put out messages to say when he's taking commissions, and I would highly recommend, again, checking him out because his work is second to none. But yeah, those are my two. So I'm interested to hear from you guys whether or not you've got any recommendations or if there's any particular artwork that you've seen that you've really enjoyed.
It's funny that should come up because actually just before joining this call, I got an email with the first piece that I got commissioned for just for character art for my books from Chris Nazgul, who I believe I posted on the forums in the art section a while ago, and he's been great to work with and is an amazing artist. Just like kind of these like darker themed character portraits that I think it was, I saw a while ago, Rob J. Hayes. I see him post artists that are open for commissions every now and then. And I think it popped up there, and I started following the guy's work and finally contacted him and just got to see the finished piece that I'll be posting in the near future, and it looks great. I definitely recommend him.
Yes, yeah. It's finding an artist is so tough because you want to be sure that it's created by a human and not not AI. Yeah. But another vote for Dawn Larder. Larder's fantastic to work with. She did the logo for the website and the logo for our comics podcast. So really easy to work with. Really fantastic experience and some wonderful work. So it's nice to have artwork that is made and is kind of you can feel there's certain artists you can feel that they really put themselves into it, and you can really feel there's something that it just stands out when there's heart into artwork, and that's definitely with Dawn for sure.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I'm interested as well from your perspective, Thomas, as someone who's obviously just been working with an artist. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are getting to the point they're about to do their first book and they're thinking about things like covers and things like, you know, how do you recommend people kind of go about that process? Like, what would you say people need to look for in artists?
I have no idea. I like you said, I know nothing about art. I can draw stick figures. I don't even think I could do that very well. And basically, I just recognized something that I was like, oh, that looks cool. I like that style. But yeah, I'm coming into this with knowing absolutely nothing.
I mean, I think that's a fair enough point. It does sometimes just boil down to knowing what you think looks cool and what you think is going to look cool for your book. And I think for readers as well, and Steve will probably agree with this, is, you know, sometimes it is just a case of, as much as we don't like to admit it, you know, what's the phrase I'm looking for, guys? Something about book cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. That's the phrase I'm looking for. What we absolutely do. I am on it tonight, obviously. But yeah, Steve, I mean, from a reader point of view, what kind of catches your eye?
You know, I've been wondering this too. What catches my eye? I think certain colors, are eye-catching. I don't think it's specific to me. I just think certain colors stand out. But for me personally, I always look for the darker kind of, I want a tone for what the book is about to give me at least an idea of what to expect. So of course I look for the darker stuff or for the the gritty, dirty, dusty stuff. So that's typically what I look for, but I try not to be too harsh because I know that artwork is expensive, cover art. So I'm not too picky when it comes to cover art, but definitely certain colors. And sometimes really something really simple stands out because there's a lot of really busy covers. And when there's too much going on, it's almost a deterrent for, at least for me, because there's too much going up that's really straightforward. The title, something to catch your eye, then that's kind of what I look for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really big obstacle for a lot of, self-published authors to get around is the cost of artwork. And that's why I think the more people can share in the artists that they've found and give people choice to see, the different styles that they can work with, the different, themes that people offer, I think that it just widens that pool of opportunity for people, to work within whatever budgets they've got, whatever styles they've got. But yeah, I'm excited to hear. When do we get to see this new artwork then, Thomas? When is this happening?
This was something that I just got commissioned for personal use, so like for websites and social media. So I'll probably might even pop it up later on today or something like that. So, but basically just dipping my toes, getting used to this, and I'm going to get some character artwork for several of the characters in both of the series. And then at some point I may look into bigger commissions and possibly stuff for interior artwork and stuff like that.
That'd be awesome. I mean, I've always thought about doing things like this, so things like maps, character artwork, and it's just not something I've ever quite got around to. If I ever get around to working with Matthew Warne, that is definitely something that I want to do, because it does seem to really help, maybe not necessarily with book sales, but certainly introducing people to the world you've created. So yeah, no, I think that's absolutely awesome, and I will look forward to seeing that. So, moving on to the next item on our list, I want to talk a little bit today about something that actually I was going to mention in the last episode. We ran out of time, but there is a comic book series that will be featuring as part of my event in September. So John Locker is the creator. He's going to be coming along. He's going to be there to talk to people, to tell them about the comic and what it's about. It is called Afterlife Inc. It is by Big Punch Studios, who are based down in Gloucester in the UK. They've actually been going for a while. I think it was 2015 this actually started, this series. But it's actually kind of getting bigger and bigger, and it's starting to get more attention and more traction. But what I love about it is that it's kind of indistinguishable in terms of what genre it is. So it's a little bit science fantasy, it's a little bit fantasy, it's a little bit superhero. So the concept of Afterlife Inc. is essentially it's talking about the afterlife being run like a business, and all the people that run it are, for reasons I won't go into, suddenly are not there. And this con man called Jack basically takes over with his team, and they are now running the afterlife. And it's very cool, it's very quirky, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the series Upload, which is on Amazon. I just wait there because Thomas is doing a thinking face. So
I watched it. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I watched it, but it's just not coming to my head right now.
So Upload it's been around for a few years, but it's essentially this TV show where the afterlife is a computer simulation where rich people can pay when they die to upload themselves to this program, and then they get to live like in a holiday resort. And I just love this concept of, the afterlife being run as a business or being run as a huge organisation. And John Locke, incredibly talented writer. He's done a lot of work for different games, different graphic novels. His work is well worth checking out. Even if, Afterlife Inc. isn't your style of thing, he has got other work out there. But I know for a fact that Steve, you are an you are an expert, because I can't say the other word, in graphic novels and comic books. So, what have you been reading recently?
I've been reading, well, a couple of us, or a few of us on the forum have been reading the Alan Moore Swamp Thing run from the, I think, early, mid-'80s. And it's interesting to see one of Alan Moore's first, I think it was his first comic book writing job. And seeing the Swamp Thing, it's kind of made me nostalgic for the 80s. Just that kind of time period. It definitely screams 80s, but in a good way. But it is interesting. It's very dark, and the writing is very poetic, and it's a lot more impactful than I expected, because Swamp Thing isn't really a character that screams like, it's kind of boring. Like, there's not, what can you do with a character like that? Like, it's not a character that he can't do a whole lot because he's in the swamp. So, but yeah, I'm surprised with how much I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I think Alan Moore is definitely one that I think most people it's a go-to, isn't it? Really, I mean, I've not read Swamp Thing. I'll admit that, but I mean, Watchmen, absolutely incredible. Has inspired so much of the writing work that I've done. From Hell as well, massive inspiration. Thomas, you a fan?
Yes, I'm a fan of Alan Moore in general, but I read the Swamp Thing run probably when I was in high school or shortly after. Like, I don't remember it that well, but I do remember that it was amongst my favorite run of comic books. But there were a lot of comics from back then that I do not. I mean, that was like 20 years ago or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you should mention the whole 80s vibe, because one of the other things that I wanted to mention, kind of talking about Big Punch John Locke and his work, is he's actually been working on a game which it may be out on some platforms already, but I know it's due to come to Steam in autumn of this year, which is called Toxic Crusaders, which just looks absolutely hilarious. So it's essentially a punch 'em up game, and it's all based on these kind of mutated creatures and toxic waste and clearing up this toxic city. But what I love about it is it's absolutely the 80s vibe. So I saw it and it immediately made me think of Ninja Turtles. And I've kind of watched the trailer for the game and a couple of different videos they've done. And it's got that kind of, retro video arcade game vibe to it. I haven't seen an awful lot of the game because there's not a lot that's been released yet. But just the style of it really kind of harken back to, like, the nostalgic years of our childhoods.
Yeah.
Back when I was a little kid, there was a Toxic Crusader cartoon, I think, and toys. And I remember having those. And then when I was a teenager and watched the Toxic Avenger, the Troma movies, I thought that the Toxic Crusader part of it was like this fever dream that I had. I was like, wait, that couldn't have happened. You don't base a children's cartoon off of these movies, which were movies I loved. But then, yeah, like realizing, oh wait, no, for some reason they decided that these B Troma movies would be the perfect thing for a children's show and a run of toys and all this. It was amazing. Just like are either of you familiar with the Toxic Avenger?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the game is actually based off the animated series. So yeah, it's all very much that same vibe.
But the movies, which are just like gruesome B horror comedy, low budget sort of movies, they're amazing, but they're very, very different sort of feel to them.
Yeah, maybe a bit too much of a jump, but you can't shelter kids, Thomas. You've got to let them.
Oh no, absolutely not.
But yeah, maybe not too much with that. But yeah, no, it's the game is based on the animated series, so that's cool. I think it was a bigger thing in America because I remember hearing about it, but I don't remember ever actually seeing it over here in the UK.
I feel like that kind of thing happened more then. There's more like adult things that they kind of converted into kid stories. I don't feel like that happens as much anymore. It seems that there's certain franchises that are specifically built for kids or specifically designed for kids, and there's not that crossover. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it's different.
Yeah, just to clarify as well for people listening, I am not saying show your kids horror movies. I'm joking. Like, don't do that.
I am.
And if you do it, don't blame me. It's entirely your own choice. But yes, I mean, seeing this game, it actually got me thinking, feeling nostalgic about childhood video games. And I know we do talk a lot about video games that we play now, but what were the video games that you guys played in your younger years?
Oof. I think probably the one I played most my younger years is probably something like Metroid on Nintendo. I think that was probably the game that I played most and I was terrible at. But it was a fun game with a fun character and all the different monsters and aliens and stuff. So that was fun. What about you, Thomas?
Well, funny that with the Toxic Crusader game, when I was a little kid, I always loved that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up in the arcade, where it's just like the side scrolling. And played that one whenever we were around an arcade, me and my brother. But, oh yeah, we also, on Sega Genesis, the Beavis and Butthead game, where the whole goal is to get in to see Guar.
Nice. It was a big... Are they still making new episodes? I know they were about a year or so ago, still making new Beavis and Butthead episodes.
I think I heard that they brought it back, but I haven't tried any of the newer ones. I think some of those things I think are just, they're part of the time that they were there, and I don't know about bringing them back sometimes. But I could be wrong. They could be great. Or awful, but in a great way.
Yeah, awful in a good way. Yeah, I saw a couple of them. They flashed back and forth between what they would be like now. So they're like these mid-40s, losers, and they go back and forth with flashbacks to the young years. So it was a kind of a fun experiment to see what they would be like now.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of things like that over the last couple of years where they've brought back, nostalgic, especially kind of the kids shows like from the Nickelodeon era. So yeah, I remember like the Ren and Stimpy era and Angry Beavers and all that kind of thing. And I think if I sit and I watch those episodes from, the original season when I was younger, they're still funny, but I just don't think I react to them in the same way now when they're the newer ones. They're not bad. There's nothing wrong with them, but I think I agree they are very much of an era and of a time. But yeah, I mean, video game wise, Tomb Raider was probably the big one for me. Played a lot of that, and I remember as well spending like hours of my life playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and thinking it was just the best thing ever. But I never, because you have this game where you build these theme parks and you make these roller coasters, and you're supposed to make roller coasters and hit these targets of, how much money you make every year, and it was all very capitalist. But I just used to play it so I'd make roller coasters that would deliberately break down, and then, people would shoot off the end, and like everyone would die. It was a terrible theme park. No one should ever go. Health and safety nightmare. But yeah, I found it fun.
That's more fun than having like a successful theme. I mean, it's a one-way ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. You get on the roller coaster, you take your chance. What can I say?
Yeah. Not a lot of return customers, but it's fun.
Yes, that was probably my. I mean, they were probably the first games I really got into playing, and I remember as well having this game called Dizzy the Egg was another one, and Jazz Jack Rabbit, which I don't know if you guys ever heard of, but it was basically a 6-foot green rabbit astronaut that would go and fight Martians and aliens and things like that. That was pretty cool.
Huh.
So yeah.
That sounds familiar, but could it have been in the States with a different name?
I think it might have been. I don't know what the other name would have been, but I'll probably check it out later, actually.
6-foot green alien fighting rabbit sounds strangely familiar.
Yeah. I'm sure this is a real thing, not just a dream.
I guess I can't forget about the original Doom. That was fun when it was first released. Or Wolfenstein 3D. Those some fun games.
Yeah, no, I think the nostalgia definitely is a big thing for gaming. But Thomas, I know when we spoke about you coming on today that I had asked if there was anything that you wanted to bring to the table, whether it be art, books, games, biscuits, whatever. So are there any projects that you want to chat about?
There is a band in particular that I figured I'd give a shout out to that I've been listening to them for a while. I think I even posted a music video from them on the forums at one point. But I just realized the other day that when their record came out, I think I was in the middle of moving or something and didn't order it. So I've been listening to it a lot lately and got that record on the way. But it's Anaretta from New Orleans. They're this like sort of like, I don't know what the right genre term to use. It's like sort of like back years ago there was a few bands that they referred to as Blackened Crust, which was kind of like a mix of like crust punk, black metal, and a few other things. And I think that term would kind of fit pretty well. But on top of that, it's your normal band makeup with also violin, I think viola and cello. So it's these just like heavy, brooding metal songs with like wailing vocals, and it's fucking amazing. Like, I highly recommend it. I was just listening to it, just blasting it at work the other day, and it's great. Like, I can't recommend it enough.
Huh. Just pull them up on Bandcamp, so that's convenient. Yeah.
Like hints of like doom metal and all that sort of stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I saw that familiar flash in Steve's eyes when he heard the word metal then. Just
yeah.
Yeah, trying to broaden my horizons a little bit. And you had me at doom metal too, so.
Yeah. I had a feeling I would.
Yeah, it was like my ears perk up, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a recurring theme now on the show is metal bands, and I've said this before. You know, what I consider metal is probably a lot kind of gentler than what. Yeah, I mean, I was brought up with like Drowning Pool and like Lamb of God and Rammstein, things like that. Things that you probably would consider pop, but. I really want to know, because you guys always talk about metal. What do you listen to when you want to chill out? You know, when you just want to take the vibe down, you know, and have 30% less screaming in your life. What do you listen to? What's your chill out vibes?
I listen to a lot of folk and bluegrass, traditional Irish music. I guess you would say Americana, like the more modern kind of folksy bluegrass sort of stuff. But I listen, 90% of the time, I listen to a lot of acoustic music. But I still love metal too, and punk. But yeah, I like a lot of more chill music too.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, the name. I had to look up the name because I almost forgot. But to kind of relax, I usually go for something like "Explosions in the Sky" or "Sigilpor." I'm sure I'm mispronouncing the band name, but it's very, it's instrumental, or something like "Russian Circles" is another instrumental group that kind of just relax a little bit. But again, like Thomas, I like kind of bluegrass, blues, some Miles Davis, some Albert King, some, I don't know, some like that kind of thing, kind of just to relax.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the kind of thing I would probably listen to quite a lot as well. And it's funny you should mention like bluegrass and folk music, things like that, because since we started doing this podcast, my husband's been on a mission to find as many unknown, under the radar bands and musicians that he can find on YouTube. And he currently has a list of about 300 different musicians. And, you know, at least 3 times a day he'll come to me and say, watch this video, you know, for the podcast. And I completely forgot to bring the list with me, so I will have it for the next episode that we do. But he's found some really great artists, and it's just such an eclectic mix as well. You know, we found one that was like a screamo band. There was one that was like electro funk pop. There was one that was like acid gypsy folk. You know, and it's all great to discover. So I'll bring that next time. However, 2 musicians that I wanted to mention on this episode, because they are ones that generally I like to use when I'm writing and trying to be creative, and you know, but when you need those chilled out, quiet vibes. So first one is a guy called Luke Faulkner. So Luke Faulkner he's a British musician. He's a classical pianist, and he composes original scores. And he has a YouTube channel which I think has about 60,000 followers. So, you know, he's got a good following, but not hugely known. And his pieces are just so well put together. And I think what's interesting is that when we talk about classical music, is people think of classical composers. You know, we don't necessarily think of the fact that there are modern composers out there doing great work. So Luke Faulkner, definitely check him out. And the other one that I wanted to mention, whose name I will always pronounce wrong, is Erstein Vulpine. So 40k-ish subscribers on YouTube. They, again, a composer, I believe they're also a director, artist, doing amazingly cool projects. Their original scores are absolutely stunning. They do loads of covers as well. So if you want something that is more familiar, they do really cool twists on, you know, different songs. Trying to think which ones they've done now. So like Wicked Game is a great cover. Yeah, check them out. They are great for writing too.
So many great composers out there. Movie soundtracks are another great way to relax. A lot of the scores, like The Fountain, is one that I love to listen to. Very mellow. So yeah, there's lots of great composers out there.
Yeah, I mean, composers, and I have this thing as well where I'll listen to a piece of music and I really like the style of it, but what it is that I like is I actually like the producer. So there are loads of producers out there, especially on, you know, YouTube, Spotify, who are doing different covers and remixes of songs or doing original compositions. And they just have great takes on, you know, classic songs that everybody knows. So Tommy Prophet, he's quite big, so he does a lot. Who else can I think of? I'm trying to think who did the Interstellar. So Joe Blankenberg, absolutely fantastic. Thomas Bergerson, everybody, I should imagine, who's into that kind of music will know Thomas Bergerson. Yeah, absolutely tons of them.
Music is so tough because, like you mentioned, there's so much great music out there. It's just hard to find.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is finding it. And a lot, you know, of course, you look for music, you're going to find a lot of stuff that you don't like. So it's tough but it's out there. There's so many people doing so many great so much great work that it's hard to find him.
It
But
is.
it's out there. It's not on the radio. I don't know who listens to the radio, but it's also not the top whatever on Spotify. Because a lot of those that's a whole nother conversation. But, that's not indicative of what people are really doing out there. There's so many great artists out there that aren't getting the attention. So it's good to check those out.
A lot of the time, it's just on a random street corner.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing as well. You're right. And I think we're seeing more of that coming out through things like YouTube, where it's live performances, where people have just videoed someone in the street just singing a song. Anyway.
No auto-tune either.
No auto-tune. That's it. Just the natural raw talent.
Yet.
Yeah. Yes. Steve, have we had any recommendations from the forum this week?
Yes. Let me pull it up. One of the ones that I know is on your list. I just want to give it a shout out to Anthony, our friend Anthony Self, or Mr. Selfie on the forum. His YouTube channel, Horrible, just made the milestone of 1,000 subscribers. So I wanted to say congratulations to Anthony. He does scary horror game playthroughs and also some movie stuff. From time to time, he'll have a movie review or talk horror-related materials. So that link will be in the description. You should go check that out if that sounds of interest to you. And let me pull up our list. Talk amongst yourselves. That could be like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, the 1K subscriber milestone, that's just a fantastic achievement to hit because, people look at these YouTube channels and it is not easy to do. I mean, 1K subscribers, that is an achievement. There are people who are still pushing for that goal, so absolutely well deserved.
Yeah, so one of the ones was a short story. The Mimamide, I'm sure I mispronounced that, Solution by Catherine Kemp. It's a prequel story and released this month. It's called Cornish Street. So I'll be sure and leave the link for the Goodreads listing in the description. But it is listed as, for more than a decade before the events of the Mimamide Solution, there was a family of miners living in a sinking coast on Cornwall. Radioactive pollution pours into the seas, and from sunken power plants, there's talks of radicals in the Western Isles. And Ian isn't the oldest brother his family needs. The title belongs to the slightly younger but infinitely more responsible brother, Arthur. Cornish Steel is the story of family, but most especially siblings, and how they carry us through the darkest of times.
That sounds awesome.
So that's one from our friend Paramita. I should have mentioned that last time. Get on the list.
Yeah, no, that is great, and this is exactly what we want from this. We want to see more people recommending the stuff that they've loved and letting us know about whatever it may be, shows, books, games, music. Thomas, what about yourself? Have you been watching anything, reading anything recently?
I've just started reading The Genesis of Change by Olivia J. Elliott, and I'm only a few pages in so far, but it is excellent. It's beautiful prose, and it looks like it's going to be great. And I've been listening to the audiobook, finally, of Anatomy of Fear.
Hey!
And I just finished Bjorn Larsson's story and had to take a break after that one because they've all been great so far. And I'm pretty sure like every author on there has been on my radar, someone that I want to read. But the only two that I've actually read anything from were yourself, Holly, of course, and Lee C. Connolly. So it's finally getting stories from authors I've been wanting to read. But then Bjorn's story, there's something about it, it hit. Like, that, it was amazing. Like, I got to the end of it and just seeing where he was going with it, but also like there was one particular scene that just kind of hit with past experiences of mine and stuff like that. That was like I had to take a break and just kind of think about it for a minute. It was very good.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when we were in the editing process and working with Bjorn on that story, and working with Sarah and him to try and get it kind of ready for the book and the way that he wants. And it was just, the whole thing was such an intense, incredible experience, because he is so keyed in to this, really impactful, like psychological prose that he just can get inside your brain and just absolutely understand what makes people react. He knows how to, put the finger on those nerves that you don't really want, but you do want, because it's just such an amazing story. Like, yeah, it's uncomfortable in the best way possible.
Mm.
So, yeah.
But I think Lee's story is next, so I'm looking forward to getting back into it. But yeah, I just had to think about Bjorn's story for a little bit longer before I moved on with it.
Yeah, had to go out and look at some rainbows and some kittens, to balance things out.
Yeah, and you mentioned Livia's book. Everyone who's been reading it lately has just been raving about it, about how wonderful it is.
Oh, yeah.
So it's good to see that she's getting some great feedback.
Yeah, I've got that one on my TBR, and I am really excited for it. I'm always excited for books, but there are maybe a couple a year that I just really look forward to, and that is absolutely one of them for this year. Mm-hmm. So it'd be good to get into that.
Yeah, another one on the forum that Alex had recommended was a channel called Nerd Forge. Looks like lots of different nerd, self-explanatory, lots of different nerd projects.
Nerds being forged.
Nerds being forged. Really popular channel, over 3 million subscribers, but looks like there's PCs being built. They build different rooms, kind of upgrade their gaming room, and they looks like it's kind of a project. They build a Fallout kitchen, so lots of fun stuff. So another channel to check out if you're not familiar with that, like I wasn't before Alex mentioned it.
That sounds like something that I could literally lose days of my life to. So
I know it's bad.
I don't know if it's the kind of thing that they have on there, but we're really obsessed at the moment with this idea that if we had enough money, which we clearly don't, we would want to build a specific gaming room. So we would want to have the mahogany panelled walls and the, cast iron chandeliers and things like that. So I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos which are just walkthroughs of people's gaming rooms, and I'm so in awe of these different creative ways people use these spaces.
Yeah, I can't start watching those because I won't, just like you mentioned, I'll lose hours in that and just get nothing done. I talk about how I bite off more than I can chew and I have so much to do, and then I sit there and watch nonsense for too long because it's like, oh, what are they going to do with this room? And an hour passes.
Yeah, it's easily done. So we are approaching the magic hour milestone where I like to bring things to a close, because if I don't, we go wildly off track. I feel like that's already happened quite early on in this episode. But as we go into wrap up, Thomas, tell us a little bit about the projects and anything that you've got coming up over the next kind of couple of months.
I have a lot coming up, kind of. It's been a particularly busy year for me, which I'm happy about. I don't know when this episode is going to air, so for the most immediate project, I will just say keep an eye out. We have a big announcement coming up in a week or two, but I can't say any more until then. And then on top of that, I'm about a little more than halfway done with the next Vermin of the Old Empire book. That will definitely be out before the end of the year. And the third Fall of Emros book, I'm trying to get out before the end of the year. It's either going to be the end of the year or the very beginning of next year.
Oh, wow. You're busy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm making up for those 2 years.
I love it.
Oh, you weren't kidding. That's a lot coming up.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you've been a little bit mysterious as well there.
Yeah. Just, what is it? I think there'll be an announcement on the 15th.
Okay.
I'm just seeing I can't even remember what day it is today, but yeah, just checking. But yeah, for those that are intrigued and want to know more about your work and what you do, where can they find you?
I'm most active over at Page Chewing, but I am on Twitter at Stone and Shield and Facebook at Fall of Emros. And I'm not very active on either, but if anyone wants to reach out, they can get a hold of me there. And I have a blog that I occasionally update, fallofemros.blogspot.com.
Awesome. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on. I mean, I just love talking to you anyway. I mean, we talk quite often. You always have something interesting to say. It is fantastic to hear about your work and a little bit more about that. Steve, anything that you want to bring to the table before we bring this to a close?
I did want to mention one more thing. Our friend Susanna from the forum, Susanna Imaginario, her new I think it's novella, Ouble. She's trying to help the local dog shelter in her hometown, and all the proceeds from book sales are going towards the dog shelter to help keep the doors open and to help them continue working. So really wanted to plug that as well for her book. And so great book and also a good cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely check that out. I mean, that's just such a good thing to do as well. Such a good thing to support. And it's great to see authors doing things like that. So I hope that goes really, really well for her. But for tonight, I feel like we have jumped from topic to topic. There's been no real linear plan to this, but what can I say, guys? You knew what you were getting into when you agreed to do this.
Yeah.
It has been an absolute pleasure, as always. If you are listening to this and you would like to bring to our attention any of the amazing projects that you are either doing yourself or enjoying, again, whatever they may be, please do let us know over in the forums. We would love to shout them out. That is what we're doing this for. And quite honestly, I'm having to build these lists and I just want other people to do all the work for me. So please send us your recommendations. But until next time, it has been an absolute joy to speak to you and to put the spotlight on some amazing stuff. Thank you guys, and I will speak to you all again.